Today, I'm delighted to invite our special guest, Anne Williams, on to talk. She's going to be discussing her latest project with herself and her husband, Eric Brown. And they've put out this incredible resource. It's a digital textbook, so it's highly interactive. And it's so topical for the moment because it's all about preventing disease transmission in a massage setting. So this resource has been made available free to the entire profession. It's absolutely incredible. I have to mention my sister Alison. She actually reviewed this textbook for me first, and she said, you got to do it. It's incredible. And I think it really is a standout product compared to a lot of the information that's being put out now. One of our goals is to try and reassure people, take away some of the fear that therapists have at the moment, that we want to put out really quality information that is easy to access. And we can see from this text that it really does mirror here in Ireland what our health executive is saying, what the CDC is saying in the US. And Anne's book really just illustrates all of this beautifully. Anne has been a therapist for 23 years now, and she has been heavily involved in the education side of the massage profession. I think that's part of her passion, is how to get information across in a way that students actually engage with. So I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit about that. You can find more on Anne's bio on their website. It's Massage Mastery Online, and we'll give links to this. But right now, I'd like to introduce you to Anne. Anne, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today and with everyone in Ireland, because as I was telling you earlier, I am of Irish descent. And so Ireland is definitely a second home, and I've spent some significant time there and love it very much.
Great. So there's that personal connection that you really feel connected to our Irish heritage, our shared heritage, and even the geography, having traveled around Ireland a little bit. You said you've spent time in Dublin and around Wicklow and places like that.
Yes, and
Great.
loved it. It's just a beautiful place. And I grew up in Seattle, Washington, which mirrors the environment of Ireland a little bit more. I'm in Colorado now, which is sun, sun, sun all the time. So I did escape the rain, but I still love the beautiful green of Ireland.
Excellent. So, Anne, I was wondering, the resource that you've put together, I keep talking about it in such effusive, enthusiastic terms, because I think it really is an exceptional digital textbook that you've put together. I keep going to say course because to me, there's so much to it, the questions that are involved, the scenarios that are detailed, there's so much in it. So can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write the book in the first place, but then also to so generously share it for free with our industry? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I have two textbooks that are printed. And the first was called Massage Mastery from Student to Professional. And the second is Spa Bodywork, a guide for massage therapists. Mm-hmm. Those books were published by Lippincott, Williams, and Wilkins, who decided to discontinue their massage therapy line in 2018. Now, at the time I was working, I had a full-time job working for a national organization here in the United States, the ABMP, and I just really couldn't cope with trying to figure out how to place my books with another publisher or figure out what I wanted to do with them. But as anybody who's published a book knows, it's years of your life to create textbooks. So they just kind of sat on the side. And I knew that I did not want to publish in a traditional way ever again, that wasn't for me. You lose far too much control of your product. For me, textbooks are not visual enough. They're not interactive enough. Students often don't use them because they're boring. And I felt like there's got to be a better way. And that's where my husband enters the picture, because Eric Brown has long been a leader in online learning in the US massage therapy market, mostly for professional therapists as a continuing education online learning expert. So together we developed this idea of digital textbooks. And a digital textbook, as you mentioned, is a lot more like a course than a textbook, but it's meant to do what a textbook does, only much, much better. It's meant to sort of engage a learner, pull a learner into content. And in my world, we're all learners, not just when we're in school. We're constantly learners. We're always lifelong learners. And I think that's very true of massage therapists. We always want to learn new techniques or new information that will help us do our jobs more effectively. So when COVID hit, we were already working on a digital textbook project, but it was meant to launch in 2021. So we weren't very far along. But like many people, we were caught completely off guard. One day we were at a big gathering, lecture gathering at the local university here, and 2 days later, our city shut down. And we were on full lockdown, and we were completely caught off guard and unprepared, really. Just like our country has demonstrated that it was completely unprepared. So, like many, I became completely obsessed. I think I spent days watching the news, watching the information evolve. And then I do what I do, which is I write. So I started to write about COVID just for my own information. I started to write chapters about it. I started to write stories about it. I started to gather information that I found compelling. And as you said, I honestly, I do adhere to the CDC guidelines. In the US, we have to. That's our governing sort of health and human services organization. But the World Health Organization was much more out ahead of COVID-19 because of their experience with SARS and with MERS. So I often went there first. And what you often find is that the World Health Organization is about 3 weeks ahead of the CDC. And you'll see the CDC sort of catch up. Like, one of the things that I've been committed to doing is updating our digital textbook every single week. And every single week, I find things I need to change. Information that's either kind of settled out or information that's just emerged that needs to be added. So for me, this project evolved as a need to understand COVID from my own perspective, and a need then to support my poor profession that's just been annihilated in so many ways by this disease. Clients are going to need to feel safe if they're going to return to massage. And the way that we help them feel safe is by supercharging, as I say in the textbook, our knowledge, our policies, our safety practices, our sanitation and hygiene. We're going to have to bring a whole new level to the game. And that's what we hope the textbook will do. And you had sort of asked about why make it free. Well, people's incomes were just annihilated. So I don't feel right profiting from the pandemic. We profit in that people become aware of our product and they sign up for our product, and we get to start a conversation and a relationship with those people. And that's good for our business. But this, I just want to do the best work that I can and get it out there to the profession and support massage therapists as they try to figure out how to return to work in a way that keeps them safe, their families safe, and their clients safe.
And I think that's an important point as well, where you're saying about updating. I've even seen from the time that I first took the course to now that there has been updates, information is changing. And I mean, that is one of the phenomenal things that is not available in a traditional textbook.
Exactly.
I mean, there's so many other things. Like, I love the little flip tiles, the familiar terminology, that before you start a chapter, you kind of feel like you've already got some knowledge. You're on familiar ground entering into it because you've had this terminology review. Yeah. And what a lot of people are going to say, I'm sure for some of it, is that it's some of the principles are things that they would have learned in their foundation massage
Absolutely.
Education. But then there's so much more. One of the things I loved, we were talking about kind of instilling confidence in the clients returning, is the downloads. I mean, the fact that there's downloads that you can print off, you can put these up in your bathrooms, in your clinic, you can put them on front doors. I mean, it's it's a great thing that people don't have to go hunting for. Oh, that's a good idea. Where would I find that? It's right there on the
Yes.
page, and it says download here. So, and some of them are actually in a couple of places in the course. So you really can't miss them. I thought that was so thorough.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I like that too. And I like that. And that is the beauty of a digital textbook is instead of just saying, here's some sample language you can use for your document, I can say, here's a PDF, download it here and hang it up on your wall. It's ready to go. And I love graphic design. So doing those pieces is super fun and creative for me, but not everybody has the time or the energy or the desire to do that. So it's another way to be really helpful.
Yeah.
My background for as well as being a massage therapist, as you mentioned, I'm very much engaged in education in the United States. And I recently resigned from a position with a national organization on very good terms, and still love and support that organization with my whole heart and soul. But as part of my job, I really worked on instructional design. And over the last 14 years, that's been my passion and my area of focus. How do people learn? And how do we make learning more easier and more engaging? How do you draw people into content and bring content alive? And you certainly can't do that in a traditional textbook, but you can absolutely do that online using multimedia, using video, using downloads, using a lot of imagery, using the flip tiles, using games where people really have a chance to apply the information before they try to take it into the real world. So for me, creating preventing disease transmission in a massage practice was my husband Eric and I's first attempt to see if this vision that we have of a digital textbook can work. And so far, everyone's told me that yes, it can. So I'm super excited because I have a whole bunch of stuff kind of on the side waiting to come to the forefront. And now there's a lot of energy to get it out there because it's time and it's ready and we have a platform and it all works.
Well, I've noticed, having written a book myself, a lot of therapists have said to me that I like to have the physical book in my hand.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I'm probably guilty of what a lot of people do is when you produce a digital version of your textbook, it is just like a digital version of your textbook. There is no extra interaction element, which your digital textbook really does harness that ability to an incredible extent. If you don't mind, I might share a slide of this for a second or just let people see a little bit because the visuals are just so impressive that I really, really loved this section on. Here we go. This is chapter 7. So this is quite a bit of a way through the course, but you can see the imagery is really strong. It's really vivid. There's a lot of colors. But my favorite part is the last section, apply it. It allows people to go through a scenario because I think what a lot of people have, they oftentimes talk about fear of the unknown. And they go, what if a client comes in with? And you have a whole story here where people can click their way through slides. They can select the information. They can check and see if they're right. And if they select the wrong thing, it'll tell them, I'm just going to click something at random. I didn't even read that. Yep, I've gotten it wrong deliberately. And it tells you, what is the thinking behind it? That it's not just a simple, you didn't get that one right. That I love those kind of prompts and things like that. And you can see how involved and interactive. We have another scenario here and you can click through different aspects of this. It's just, I find I was excited. You like to see the little stars pop up when you get things right. It seems silly, but even as grown adults, we like that little pat on the back. You did a good job. We
like
exciting.
The little dopamine rush from getting it right.
That's the thing you get, and it encourages to stay engaged. Because you've talked before about that kind of 3 stages of engagement. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I work from so over the course of my career, I'm a very eclectic person and I kind of gather different learning models that I like and I kind of meld them all together and make up my own thing. And I really, as part of a big project that I worked on here in the States called the Entry Level Analysis Project, the ELAP project, I was the project manager, project leader, and really the first author who did a lot of the scribing for that group. We used a very specific instructional design model for that material. And that model still informs all the work that I do. In that instructional design model, people learn in 3 levels. At level 1, you gather in information and you have to have a basic understanding of it. Now, if you don't have the proper context for material, or if you don't understand it fairly easily right at the beginning, our response to material is typically one of 2 things. I get this, I'm ready for more, I get it, I'm ready to move on, or I don't get this, I'm out. And learners very quickly sort of disengage from content that they don't have a sense of being able to move forward with. So it's really easy to lose people in an instructional design sort of thread. Now at level 2, as long as your learner, and that can be any learner, it doesn't have to be somebody who's in kindergarten, it can be somebody who's 55 years old like me, any learner then takes what they know and they take concepts and apply them. They apply them in new ways and in new situations. And the minute you start to apply content, a whole lot of stuff happens in your brain. You make connections to things you already know. You start to apply content to your own life and think about it in terms of your own personal wants and needs. You're able to sort of create a hierarchy of content in your mind so that you understand that things are composed of smaller things and things can be a piece in a bigger thing, and you start to create these knowledge hierarchies in your mind. Now, at level 3 of learning, you're able to use a concept to solve a problem. So you're able to use information that you've learned to solve problems. In our case, we're always solving problems about, is this condition contraindicated? Does it contraindicate massage? What will be the best treatment choices we can make for this particular client? How do we engage clients in a conversation about the choices that we make for treatment? So in a digital textbook, in a traditional textbook, you can take learning to level 1, and that's about it. In a digital textbook, I can take you all the way to level 3 of learning. And for me, it just doesn't get any better than that. That's awesome. Woo!
It's funny, as you talk about it, I can see how that applies to your digital textbook, that you can see those different levels in my own experience and my sister's experience, Alison, and having gone through that course, that's very much, it's happening. It's real and it's engaging in your digital textbook.
Yeah.
I'm conscious that people are probably really most interested at this time in talking about, I love the education stuff, but probably people are very interested in the COVID-19 response. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about PPE, because while some people will be familiar with the use of PPE, particularly people who do any TMJ work or stuff like that, they may feel a little bit daunted about the use of PPE in this kind of infection control setting. In that kind of space. I wonder, could you talk maybe a little bit about the idea of supercharging and maybe a little bit about the PPE aspect of that as well?
Right. So personal protective equipment, PPE, we use it as massage therapists in a rather limited fashion. Like, its goal, of course, is to keep a healthcare provider safe from infection. So nurses and doctors, people on the front lines who are dealing with respiratory secretions or blood and body fluid all the time, they really need a lot of protection. Now, with COVID-19, we also need some protection based on how we believe this particular coronavirus is transmitted. We know it's transmitted in small droplet and large droplet respiratory secretions. We know that for certain. We also know that it's probably transmitted via indirect contact, which means an infected person touches their nose or their mouth with their hand and then touches a surface. And then someone else comes along and touches the surface and then touches their nose or their mouth. Or somebody sneezes on you, which does happen because respiratory droplets spread a very long way. Or somebody sneezes in the environment when you're standing close by, or even talks loudly and expels respiratory droplets from their mouth and nose while they're talking. You're 3 feet away and or maybe that's a meter, and you inhale it and catch the disease that way. So let me first start by saying I'm a massage therapist and not a doctor, and I'm applying what I'm learning from the CDC and the World Health Organization to a massage practice. But no one has experience in this yet. So everything I say should therefore be taken with a grain of salt and placed in its perfect, in a situation where we say information's evolving. But what we do know suggests to me that the face covering, just a general face covering, is not enough. So we hear a lot about our officials, especially in the US, I'm not sure about the situation there, saying just wear a face covering. Well, yes, that will prevent you from dispersing respiratory droplets a long distance, but we're assuming then that you're 6 feet apart. So what happens when you're giving a neck massage and you're right here above a client's airspace? We know that at least 17%, the number is sketchy still, we're still not certain, but a number of people are asymptomatic carriers. They have absolutely no idea that they're infected. They show no signs or symptoms, and yet they carry and transmit the virus. So suddenly you're breathing in their air. For me, I wouldn't want to be providing neck massage or being in a client's airspace without an N95 respirator mask. And those are the masks that in the US are in very short supply. So the good thing about a N95 mask, however, is it can be recycled. You can have 2 masks, you can take off one, put it in a breathable paper sack, and let it sit for 24 hours, because they know that COVID-19 only lasts on that type of surface about 17 hours. So every other day you can be wearing a different mask. You do have to handle that mask as contaminated when you take it off. So the outside's contaminated, you've contaminated the inside. So there's a proper way to remove the mask. There's a proper way to do just about everything, according to the CDC and the World Health Organization. So I try to give very clear step-by-step instructions. Here is the protocol to follow. Here's when you sanitize your hands. Here's when you need to absolutely wash your hands. So,
I think that's something you went into in really good detail in the digital textbook, that there's the different categories of, the cleaning you do between treatments, the cleaning you do at the start of the day, the cleaning you do at the end of the day, the cleaning you do weekly. I thought that was really good information. I think you go into that really thoroughly. Sorry, you were going to say about gloves. Sorry.
So gloves, we all think, okay, we need to be wearing gloves, but we're kind of mixing up a couple of different concepts. So gloves come into play when blood or body fluid is present. And that means anytime there's discontinuous skin or broken skin on a therapist's hands or forearms, because we all know we're using our forearms or elbows, so check your elbows for dryness. And if there's discontinuous skin on the client, a rash, even acne, and conditions, we're not so worried about COVID because our gloves can become contaminated with COVID just like our hands can. We're really much more interested with gloves in preventing blood or body fluid from getting on our hands, because with like hepatitis, microscopic amounts of blood that enter your body from an infected person can cause you to develop hepatitis C or B. So hepatitis would be much more of a reason to wear gloves. We would wear gloves when we're handling contaminated laundry, just to keep it off of our hands. And as somebody pointed out to me, and I think that this is a good point, when you have gloves on your hands, you're extremely aware of your hands. So you don't do so much of fixing your bangs when you're looking at how crazy they look in the video screen, right? You're not fixing your face, or you're not touching your face, or if you do, you're much more aware of it. The problem with gloves, though, is they can't be decontaminated. You can't then sort of wash your hands with gloves on and make the gloves clean. You can't then put like an alcohol-based hand sanitizer on those gloves and clean them. You literally have to remove them and get a fresh pair of gloves. So unless you're worried about a blood-borne disease, I would say don't wear gloves. And although you would wear gloves if somebody has discontinuous skin, because, well, now I'm going to backpedal. So let's kind of come back to this idea of standard precautions. So standard precautions are the minimum infection procedures that are applied to anyone in a healthcare setting. So we treat all clients the same. And that means we treat them as if they are potentially infectious. So if we see broken skin on any client, we should wear gloves, even if they haven't disclosed to us during their health intake interview that they have hepatitis C or B or AIDS or anything else. If we have discontinuous skin, broken skin on our hands or our forearms or our elbows, we should be wearing gloves to protect the client from picking up microscopic drops of blood from us. So standard precautions, are always in play. They are something we're always paying attention to. But right now, the real thing we need to pay attention to is respiratory droplets.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a good point, because I think a lot of people are concerned that is the wearing of gloves going to put their clients off when they're doing a treatment? And we're saying really in relation to COVID, that's not a thing. You don't need gloves unless, as you said, there is some problem either with the client's skin having open breaks, discontinuous, or the therapist's skin.
Yeah.
One of the other things we mentioned was about kind of building the confidence with the public so that they know about coming back in. And there was also an interesting bit in the digital textbook about informed consent and really what that means. And I think pre-screening is going to be an important part of, as they say, the term that's being coined now, the new normal going forwards when we do go back to work. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that, the informed consent and making sure that you're communicating well with your client?
Sure. So I think that we're going to have to change a lot of our policies in terms of a lot more communication with clients before they ever arrive at our clinic. We're going to need to be screening them and making sure that they don't have a temperature on the day of the massage. We're going to need to be probably escorting them directly back to our session rooms. Like, there's a whole series of things we need to think about. And those are things that I do discuss in the textbook. But informed consent is challenging for people because it's one of those things that's not very cool in massage school. It's really kind of this philosophical idea about a person's right to decide what happens to their own body. And people are like, yeah, informed consent, whatever, get me onto the muscles. That's the cool stuff. So the definition of informed consent is it's the right, or it's when a fully informed client agrees to massage treatment, and more than agrees, requests it. So to be fully informed, we have to first understand that clients are probably not paying as much attention to this as we are. They're paying attention, but maybe in a more general way. We're like, oh my God, how do I keep people safe? So that means we're paying a lot more attention. We understand that at close contact, we're in each other's airspace. And that means there's a higher risk for infection if one of us is an asymptomatic carrier and carrying COVID-19. So that means we need to alert clients that they're at higher risk for COVID infection through close contact with other people. Now, statistically, I think it's fair to make the argument, like, let's not be fear mongers. What is the likelihood that someone is asymptomatic with COVID and walking through the doors of your clinic? It is very low. That's the honest truth. So I don't want to be a fearmonger, because I don't think that that's helpful either. But there is a risk, and there's an increased risk because you're in my airspace and I'm in your airspace. So I think that's what we have to be clear with clients about and make sure that they're willing to assume that risk when they enter our practices. And I provide some language for people in the textbook that I can't actually remember off the top of my head, but it's there for you.
It's there, they'll find it. But I actually think, like most things, there is always a positive in every situation. That, again, some people might find that a little bit daunting, but you think about the opportunity it presents to you to contact, particularly say with a new client, to make that personal contact with them before they come in. You get to chat with them, start that dialogue, address any concerns, particularly if it's maybe even their first time having a massage treatment, that you get to maybe actually discuss, which is slightly more personal than just having information on your website or your Facebook page or something like that, that it is that initial communication with your client. And I think that is a positive. I think it's a way of building the expectation, the enthusiasm for the treatment session, and, like you said, taking the opportunity to make sure there's informed consent.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, I haven't looked at the this particular digital text. I'm really excited to have a look at your other books as well that you have online. And I just wonder, maybe before we finish up, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on, or projects you're working on at the moment? I know this is taking up probably all of your time, but is there stuff you have in the pipeline, things that you're excited about coming up? Anything else you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so what you'll find is Preventing Disease Transmission in a Massage Practice is our showiest textbook. And the other textbooks are, the first is Massage Mastery from Student to Professional. And that is up in a very sort of streamlined format. We're just adding quizzes to it over this next month. That textbook, though, is adopted by a number of schools, like lots of schools across the country, and printed copies are almost completely gone, and they're selling on Amazon for like $130. So we're giving schools just really substantial discounts and asking them to start using this instead. Now, I don't know how it is in Ireland, but in the US, the massage profession has been very slow to move online. So in many cases, this will be their school's first sort of attempt to see if their students will move to a digital text. And their students are probably much more comfortable with it than their teachers are. So it's a bit of a shift for people that we're asking people to make. But it still is, it still has a nice quality. Like, one of the things about digital textbooks is the fact that navigation is with you. You're not constantly going back to the table of contents and trying to figure out where to go next. You just expand your table of contents and you can go click right to what it is you're looking for. And I think that's a beautiful, even in a streamlined digital text, that's a really nice feature. So
I think it's something that a lot of therapists actually do, that they buy a lot of textbooks, but they don't read them cover to cover. They'll go for a particular topic that they're looking for at that time, and the digital textbooks give them access to that. It's funny, I was talking to Dave Sheehan. We were chatting about the positives that people can focus on as a result of COVID. He's involved with massage and myotherapy in Australia. And we were talking about your product as well. But one of the things we were talking about is people getting over this kind of technophobia. From the therapist point of view, some of them don't feel tech savvy, and they realize how easy and accessible these things are, how interactive and how much more exciting they are. And I think from, like you said, state boards and things like that, there's much more of an acceptance now that virtual education really has a role to play.
Yeah, it definitely has just shaken us up and moved us all forward into the digital world much more effectively, because we won't change if we don't have to. And now we have to. And now we have to do it really rapidly. And that's where Eric comes in, because Eric's really good about thinking about user experience. And I'm the one agonizing about the content, and he's the one agonizing when somebody can't get their password reset. So, we're a beautiful team. It's a beautiful combination. For next projects, we're really taking pieces of Massage Mastery and we're recreating them in the format of Preventing Disease Transmission. So that much more interactive, really engaging format. And we'll be releasing them as smaller bite-sized projects throughout the year. And then eventually we'll move into completely new textbook areas. And we're also starting to talk to people who want to use our platform for their materials and what those partnerships look like. So, as I told you, we plan to release in 2021. So, we got moved ahead quite significantly. And it's been really exciting because there's a lot of interest in what we're doing, and it's really different. And we're excited to make really cool partnerships like the one we've made with you recently, and just sharing information and being able to get the word out, which we really appreciate how much you've helped us engage a European market, which was not part of our planning or thinking. But we have lots of orders from Ireland, a lot from the UK, from Australia, and one from Norway.
Very good.
So we need to do some work in that, Norwegian market, but
yes, well,
we're making inroads.
We've had a lot of students. Yeah, we've provided seminars around Europe. We were over in Poland last year. We've had people come over from Switzerland, France, Italy, Spain. So there's quite a European community. So we'll have to start sharing that out a little bit more. I think always the language barrier is probably a little bit more of a challenge, but maybe that's something that digital textbooks are going to lend themselves to really well in the future, is translation algorithms and things like that. I'd have to say, I'm really excited about seeing where the other books go. Haven't experienced how engaging and interactive the preventing disease I should get the name right. Sorry.
Preventing disease. That's
preventing
good enough.
disease transmission is the word that kept escaping my mind.
Yes.
Preventing disease transmission in massage practice. Having seen how engaging and interactive that is, I can't wait to see how that's applied to the other projects. I think that's something that people really have to look forward to. And the great thing about the digital textbooks is people who buy it, those things become updated. And it's not like you have to, I need to go out and buy the new edition. That they have access to all of those new features as they become available and live. So that's something for everybody to look forward to.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to thank you for joining us today. I'd like to thank Eric as well. On behalf of the massage community, I'd really like to thank you guys for sharing this product for free. If you haven't downloaded it yet, I would say go onto the website, Massage Mastery Online. You'll see very clearly the different products that are listed. They very kindly put preventing disease transmission in massage practice at the top of the list, so you can't miss it. You can sign up. You only need to give a minimum amount of information. It's completely free. You don't need to give any credit card details. No. So in terms of getting awareness of this product out there, I felt this has been a really easy thing to do because it's just such a cool product. It's so good. So once again, anything in closing, Anne, before we say goodbye?
Just thank you so much for your support and for helping us get the word out, and stay safe out there in the big new world.
Thanks very much, Anne. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.